Let's turn to some of the other major news of the day with National Senator Matt Canavan and Perth Mayor Basil Zempilas. Welcome to you both. Look, this is quite an outrageous cover-up. So just late this afternoon, Defence Minister Richard Marles revealed to my colleague Kieran Gilbert that a Chinese fighter jet had released flares within 30 metres of an Australian military aircraft as it carried out a routine patrol over the South China Sea. Now, Matt, this took place at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, but they didn't make it public until after question time today. This is the last sitting day before the federal election. So, Matt Canavan, this is obviously a deliberate tactic to avoid answering questions in Parliament.
Well, it looks that way, doesn't it, Shari? It's a bit hard to add it up otherwise. You would think something of this grave nature would be announced by the Prime Minister while he was here in Canberra. To me, it's just simply another symptom of the weakness of this government. They seem to shy away from controversy rather than respond to it. Obviously, an incident of this nature is extremely serious and concerning for Australians. It would appear on the face of it to be an outright act of aggression from Chinese military forces. But it needs a response from our leader and our Prime Minister to show that we're united in our response and that we won't be intimidated. But instead, when things like this seem to happen, the Prime Minister too often runs and hides rather than confront the issue head on. And I think his leadership, his style of leadership, the lack of strength in his leadership will be a major issue at that election, even though we're not going to have that parliamentary scrutiny you said. His response on issues like this will be under the microscope at the next federal election.
Absolutely. It's just further weakness. I mean, he's too weak in the face of China, Basil, and we know Albanese's been cozying up to Chinese President Xi Jinping. This is just the latest hostile example of China's ongoing pattern of aggressive behaviour. And just like last time, the PM didn't want questions on it.
No, I think the Australian public deserve to have some answers around this, and ideally those answers come with Parliament being fully able to challenge the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister to get those answers. And the first thing members of the general public are entitled to ask is, well, was our aircraft in their airspace or not? I mean, we should know that. That's a fundamental. If we were in their airspace, why were we in their airspace? And was the reaction from the Chinese military over the top or fair enough in the circumstances? So without answering any questions and by delaying the announcement until after Parliament has risen, then it only raises further questions in the minds of everyday Australians. And they deserve to have the respect and courtesy of some answers around what's taken place here. Because at the end of it all, if it becomes hostile, we know who pays the price. So let us know, Prime Minister. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, and also the ADF, they would want to know, the thousands of people who serve in the ADF, that the Prime Minister has their back. Andrew Hastie released quite a good statement on this, and he said Richard Marles must explain why he has conveniently released this information at the end of a parliamentary sitting week, despite knowing about the incident for days, avoiding serious questions about national security matters. So this is going to be a big issue, the cover-up in the coming days. Now, let's have a look at Donald Trump and the negotiations that he's about to have with Vladimir Putin to try and, as he says, solve or end Russia's war on Ukraine. Putin and Trump are set to meet in Saudi Arabia to discuss ending the war. This is after his 90-minute phone call. Trump has also spoken with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. There's also going to be Secretary of the State meetings in Munich later this week. Matt, do you have confidence that Trump will be able to sort this out in a way that isn't simply appeasing Russia?
Well, look, I hope that's the outcome we've got. I don't know. I don't trust anyone, I suppose, in this game. Shari, we just got to be judged on results. That should be the yardstick, and obviously we don't have the results yet in from these discussions. I think it's a positive thing that discussions are occurring. I've called for that for years. I've felt that one of the most remarkable things about this conflict is the complete absence of any conversations to try and bring it to an end. Now, maybe that those that possibility was not able to come to fruition in the last few years, but at the very least we should try for peace. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people probably have died. It's terrible. It's a massively inhumane circumstance. And the lack of any conversations, to me, was a missed opportunity to try and avoid more people from dying. So I fully support the new US president trying to bring the conflict to an end. Look, he'll be judged on the results he achieves, just like every other world leader and politician.
Yeah, and let's see where he gets to in that. Look, I want to show you this video. Now, believe it or not, these three women are among the most senior ministers in the Albanese government. Have a look. Oh, Basil, it's so embarrassing. I mean, how did these, they just don't seem serious when they behave like that. And aren't they too busy to spend presumably at least half an hour making some social media video?
Yeah, it's really an interesting part of modern politics and certainly modern campaigning. I'll be honest, it was very small on the screen and I hadn't seen it before, so I couldn't see the other detail, but I could see the sort of general carry-on that was taking place. So without commenting on the specifics, look, some people decide that we need to better engage with the Australian public, and this is a way of doing it. But I think when there are so many serious issues at play, by and large, the Australian population wants to see their ministers, their senior members of parliament, their prime minister and premiers around the state doing what their job is, being serious, giving us answers, giving us a future direction. And I'm not sure that was the right time or the right place.
Yeah, I think it's just not a good look. And I also don't know how they have time. They're meant to be federal government ministers. I don't know, surely they have more work to do than making social media videos. Just very quickly before we go, Matt Canavan, the coalition is calling on the government, specifically Chris Bowen, to rule out introducing carbon border tariffs. Now, this would be a carbon tax on imports from countries who aren't doing enough on climate change. This is a story in The Australian. Matt, is this a scare campaign from your team, or is this something that Chris Bowen is actually examining?
No, well, he's put out a media release on this about a year ago, saying that this was something, the next step the government would be considering. Obviously, if we put a carbon tax on our own industry, like this government has done, the problem is that our people, our businesses have higher costs, and potentially a lot of business in other countries that don't apply carbon tax do not. And so the idea here is that we need a tariff to level the playing field, to correct for the tax that we put in. The one tax to correct for the tax that the government's put on already. Why don't we just get rid of all the taxes? That seems to me to make more sense. And here we've now got an inconsistency between the Energy Minister and the Treasurer. The Treasurer this week said that he would not impose retaliatory tariffs on the United States, even if the US does not provide us an exemption. Yet at the same time, Chris Bowen's there in his back pocket saying he would impose tariffs, and they would obviously go on the United States, given that a carbon tariff would go on the United States, given that Donald Trump has pulled out of the Paris Agreement.
Just crazy. All right. Every idea that Chris Bowen has is more wacky than the last. So wacky that, you
don't
question
see much
whether
of him
they're
anymore.
even
Where
serious.
is he? Where is
He's
he?
all on social media like those other ministers. Yeah, you can find him on TikTok, which I'm sure you're not on, Matt, being a critic of the CCP like I am.
No, I'm not. I'm not
All right,
on
Matt
TikTok.
Canavan, Basil Zemplis, great to see you both.